The notification popped up on my phone at 3:42 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon while I was reviewing portfolio statements in my corner office. Sarah had posted another LinkedIn update, this time featuring a professional photo of herself at a tech conference podium with a caption that would change everything between us. I read the post 3 times before taking a screenshot. 2,847 likes and climbing. Comments flooded in from industry professionals, family, friends, and networking connections, all praising Sarah's insights about entrepreneurial success while agreeing that some people just don't have what it takes. What none of those commenters knew was that Sarah's tech empire, the company she'd built her reputation on, the startup that launched her speaking career, the business that funded her luxury lifestyle, existed entirely because of funding from the sister she was publicly humiliating. The relationship between Sarah's success and my money had started 3 years earlier, though she had never made the connection. Her original business plan had been brilliant but underfunded. Traditional investors passed, banks declined her loan applications, and crowdfunding raised less than 10% of her target. That's when Meridian Capital Partners, one of my shell companies, approached her with an offer, $50 million in series of funding with remarkably favorable terms. No board seats required, minimal reporting obligations, and complete operational freedom. Sarah had been so grateful for the miracle investor that she never bothered to investigate who actually owned Meridian Capital Partners. For 3 years, I watched my sister build her empire on my money while treating me like the family disappointment at every gathering. She truly believed her success was self-made. She thought her funding came from smart networking, and her achievements proved she was the successful sibling while I was the one who never learned how to build anything meaningful. The irony had been almost entertaining until today. This LinkedIn post crossed a line. It wasn't just private family dynamics anymore. It was public humiliation. Sarah had used my supposed failures as content for her personal brand, and nearly 3,000 people had validated her narrative. I opened my contact list and called David Morrison, my primary financial advisor. Emma, good to hear from you. How can I help? I need to discuss the Meridian Capital position in TechFlow Solutions. Sarah's company, the $50 million investment. What are you thinking? Complete withdrawal. I want every dollar pulled out by market close tomorrow. There was a long pause. Emma, that's essentially their entire funding base. Without Meridian's investment, TechFlow is looking at immediate insolvency. I understand the implications. This will destroy the company. 200 employees, dozens of client contracts, years of development work. Are you certain this is what you want? I looked at my phone screen where Sarah's post now had 3,156 likes and fresh comments. So true. Some people never figure out how to create real value. Your sister should learn from your example instead of making excuses. I'm certain. Begin the withdrawal process immediately. David hesitated. I'll need to review the investment agreements, but given the structure we used, I believe we can exercise the emergency liquidation clause. Should I prepare a statement for the other investors? What other investors? Right. Meridian is the sole funding source. This will be dramatic. David handled the technical details while I finished my day at the consulting firm where I maintain my cover as a mid-level business analyst. My colleagues had no idea that their quiet, unassuming coworker controlled portfolios worth hundreds of millions. That was the beauty of Meridian's structure. Total anonymity. Sarah believed she'd been funded by a private investment firm, but the ownership was buried under layers of legal entities, impossible to trace. She had built her empire on my money, never once suspecting the truth. That evening, I drove to Sarah's penthouse in my modest Toyota Camry, the same car she loved to point out whenever family conversations turned to who was doing well. Her building's garage overflowed with luxury cars, including the Tesla Model S she bought with what she thought were profits from smart business decisions. Her apartment was everything mine wasn't. Floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture, artwork worth more than most people's annual salaries. All of it funded by Meridian Distributions. Money she believed came from successful performance, not from her sister's pocket. Emma, this is a surprise, Sarah said when she opened the door, smiling in that way that suggested she was already planning to turn my visit into social media content. What brings you to the successful side of town? I saw your LinkedIn post today. Oh, that. It's doing incredibly well. Over 3,000 likes so far. I think it really resonated with people about the importance of persistence and vision. It was certainly revealing. Sarah gestured toward her living room, where her laptop displayed TechFlow's analytics dashboards. The company was growing rapidly, expanding into new markets, earning a reputation in the industry. "I've been meaning to talk to you about goal setting," she said, settling onto her designer sofa. "I know you've been struggling to find direction, and I think I could help you develop a more strategic mindset." Strategic mindset? You know, thinking bigger instead of just getting by with your consulting work. Maybe consider what you could build if you really applied yourself. I looked around at the apartment, my money made tangible, while Sarah explained how I should improve my life by becoming more like her. The cognitive dissonance was remarkable. "Take TechFlow," she continued. 3 years ago it was just an idea. But through networking, persistence, and really understanding what investors want, I was able to secure the funding to make it happen." "How much funding?" I asked. $50 million. A single investor actually, which is unusual but worked perfectly. Meridian Capital Partners. They specialize in tech startups with high growth potential. "Do you know much about them?" He shrugged. "Not really. They're very hands-off, which I appreciate. Some investors want constant updates, board seats, micromanagement. Meridian just provides capital and lets entrepreneurs do what they do best." That does sound ideal. It is. And it's proof that when you have a solid plan and the confidence to pursue it, the right opportunities will find you. That's what I meant in my LinkedIn post. Some people just never learn. Success isn't complicated. You just have to be willing to take risks and think bigger than small-scale consulting work. The next morning was consumed with meetings. Withdrawing $50 million required meticulous coordination to minimize legal exposure while ensuring full recovery. "The withdrawal will trigger an immediate cash flow crisis," David explained. TechFlow's burn rate is about $4.2 million per month. Without Meridian they have maybe 3 weeks of operating capital. "What about revenue?" "Growing but not nearly enough. They've scaled aggressively, counting on continued investment. Classic startup model. Grow fast, worry about profit later." "And Sarah's personal finances?" "Tied directly to TechFlow. Salary, bonuses, stock options. Everything depends on the company staying afloat. If it collapses, she loses everything." By noon, TechFlow's accounts showed a $50 million outflow with no explanation. By afternoon, Sarah would receive notice that her primary investor had exercised liquidation rights and terminated all funding. Meanwhile, she had been posting upbeat Instagram stories all morning. Photos of her office, client feedback, inspirational quotes about persistence. At 12:47 p.m. the post stopped. At 1:15 p.m. my phone rang. "Emma, something terrible has happened." Sarah's voice shook. "Our investor pulled out completely. No warning, nothing. $50 million just disappeared from our accounts. Our lawyers say the agreements allowed some kind of emergency withdrawal clause." "Why would they do this?" "That sounds serious. It's catastrophic. We can't make payroll, pay suppliers, or keep our lease. Without funding we're bankrupt in weeks. 3 years of work, gone." "I'm so sorry, Sarah. The worst part is the timing. I just posted about persistence and now this. It's going to look like karma." Her confidence was gone, replaced by panic. For 20 minutes she explained the disaster while I made sympathetic noises. The irony was perfect. Sarah had spent years mocking me for not building something bigger, only to learn that success built on borrowed capital can vanish overnight. Over the weekend her viral LinkedIn post took on new meaning as news of TechFlow's collapse spread. The same people who had praised her wisdom now commented with pity. "So sorry to hear about TechFlow. Sending strength during this difficult time." And I smiled, because they would never know the truth. Monday brought difficult conversations as Sarah began navigating the realities of shutting down her company. 200 employees would be laid off by Wednesday. Client contracts would be terminated with penalties she couldn't afford. The office lease would default, equipment would be repossessed, and her personal guarantees on business loans would trigger bankruptcy proceedings. "I keep trying to understand what went wrong," she told me during our Tuesday call. "Our business model was sound. Execution was excellent. Growth metrics were industry-leading. The only variable was investor confidence, and I have no idea what changed. Maybe they needed liquidity for other investments. But the timing feels almost personal. Like someone wanted to watch us fail. That seems unlikely. Investors want returns, not revenge. You're probably right. It's just 3 years of my life gone overnight. My reputation, my team, my financial security, all dependent on someone else's decision. By the following week, industry publications were covering Techflow's collapse. The story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of relying on a single investor. Sarah was interviewed repeatedly. The hardest lesson, she told TechCrunch, is that success without sustainable foundations is just an illusion. We built something remarkable, but it was built on someone else's money and confidence. When that disappeared, everything disappeared. When asked about her future, she admitted, "I'm reassessing. Maybe I'll look at more stable opportunities, something that doesn't depend on external funding or investor whims." "Any interest in consulting?" the interviewer asked. Sarah laughed bitterly. "Actually, yes. My sister works as a business consultant. I used to think that was small-time thinking. Now I realize there's real value in work you control, work that doesn't depend on other people's continued support." 3 months later, Sarah called me with an update. "I've been doing some freelance consulting work," she said. "Nothing dramatic, just helping small businesses with strategic planning and process improvement." "How's it going?" "Better than I expected. The pay's decent, the work is interesting, and most importantly, it's mine. No investors to please. No funding to worry about. No rug waiting to be pulled out from under me." "That sounds sustainable." "It is. And Emma," she hesitated, "I owe you an apology. That LinkedIn post about success running in our family, except for you, that was unfair. Mean-spirited even. You've been doing steady, reliable work for years, building real skills and genuine value. I was blinded by the glamour of startup success and forgot the importance of substance over flash. I appreciate you saying that. The truth is, you've been more successful than me this whole time. You built a career that couldn't be destroyed by someone else's whims. That's real achievement." 6 months after Techflow's collapse, Sarah had established herself as an independent business consultant specializing in sustainable growth strategies. Her new LinkedIn posts championed the importance of resilience, self-reliance, and humility. The transformation was remarkable. The sister who once mocked my small-time mindset now preached its wisdom. The lesson. We met for coffee on the anniversary of the post that had started everything. "I've been thinking about that post a lot," Sarah admitted, stirring her latte. "About success and learning and what it really means to achieve something meaningful." "And what conclusion have you reached?" "That I was completely wrong. Success isn't about how much funding you raise or how fast you scale. It's about building something that lasts, something that serves people, something that exists because of your effort, not someone else's money. Those are hard lessons to learn." "They are. And I learned them the expensive way. Maybe I needed to lose everything to understand what actually matters." I thought about the $50 million that had once propped up Sarah's empire, now redirected into scholarships for women entrepreneurs. Her failure had become opportunities for others to build businesses on real foundations. "The strangest part," Sarah said, "is that I still don't know who Meridian Capital Partners really was. My lawyers tried to trace the ownership, but it's buried under so many structures it's basically impossible." "Does it matter who they were?" "Maybe not," I said lightly. "But investor relationships are still relationships. Acknowledging contributions matters more than most entrepreneurs realize." "You're right. I should have appreciated whoever it was that funded me. Instead, I just assumed the money would always be there." Transformation. Walking back to our cars, Sarah turned to me. "Emma, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Do you think I'm a better person now than I was a year ago?" I smiled. "I think you're more authentic, more grounded, more aware of what you can control versus what you can't." That's what I hoped. The arrogance, the assumptions, the way I treated people's choices as inferior to mine, all of that needed to go. Growth often requires losing things we thought we needed. Exactly. And sometimes the things we lose weren't really ours to begin with. Driving home, I reflected on the strange journey from Sarah's cruel LinkedIn post to her transformation. My decision to pull the funding had been born of frustration, but the result had been unexpectedly constructive. Her collapse forced her to discover humility, skill, and the satisfaction of self-reliance. The $50 million was now being used to empower others who valued sustainable business practices. Sarah's failure became the foundation for other people's success. She had finally learned the difference between success and the appearance of success, between real achievement and the illusion of it. And I had learned that the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation.